All right, so I don't know if anyone's actually watching this or not, but this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so I'm freaking out just a little bit. But hopefully it will be informative for both you and for me. I'm looking forward to trying to see if I can do this, if I can write this in 1 hour, and hopefully share it with you guys. So this is my first time using Twitch. I have no idea how to use it. I've got a couple screens here. I've got my main screen right in front of me with the DAW. I've got another screen to the right of me with the chat. So if any of you have any questions, if anyone's on here, feel free to shoot some questions as we go. Other than that, let's dive right in. So as I discussed on the channel today, I'm going to be trying to write a love theme in 1 hour. So typically, I do have a very specific process that I like to follow. Normally that process involves me having a notebook with me where I can write down my ideas with pencil and paper, but since I can't share a screen yet on paper and pencil, I'll be using the notepad here. But the first step I typically take is I want to understand what kind of story I'm going with. So I'll try to summarize the story in 1 sentence. Alright, so we're going to go with a very cliche kind of love story kind of idea. Alright, a couple's out on a date. Nice conversation. Then a proposal. Alright, yay! A big quintessential love theme. Alright, they're having a nice time. They're talking about maybe memory lane, whatever it is. But it ends in this big climactic proposal. They say yes, and it's just a beautiful scene. Alright, so that's the kind of thing I like to do. I have 1 sentence just to describe it. Then the next thing I like to do is I like to go with a step-by-step story progression. All right, so what's each main part of the story? All right, and this will turn out to be quite important as we go on because these main parts of the story are going to turn into the sections in the music. So steps in the story. So let's say there's the talking together, and then proposal. Yay! Alright, so good times, good memories, all that good stuff. So the story is starting to piece together. Sometimes if I'm working with a film, I'll have a lot more details on the story. Or if I'm working on like a symphonic poem, where there's an actual story or an actual poem that I'm trying to put to music, I'll get a little more detailed on this. Alright, I'll spend actually lots of time on this step. I'll spend lots of time on each of these steps. But since we're trying to keep to just 1 hour today, it's going to be pretty sped up. So 2 main sections of the story, talking together, there's a proposal. The next thing I wanted to discuss after I've thought about the story for a while is what emotions do I want to explore the deepest? So obviously things come up like love, happiness, joy. Depending on what kind of music you're trying to write, there can be all kinds of nuance to these emotions. Alright, you can get into nervousness. Alright, the nervousness right before the proposal, the shock if it was a surprising proposal, all kinds of different emotions that you can try and tease out of the story and figure out what really is at the core of this story. But for the sake of today, since we're rushing this, we're just going to stick to we'll stick to the basics right here. Love, happiness, joy, your quintessential positive vibes in these kinds of scenes. So once I've done that, this is technically all part of just step 1. So I'll mark that, which is step 1, flesh out the story. All right, step 2 would then be I want to figure out what thematic material is needed. All right, so here this is where I start thinking a little more musically. All right, so there are, at least in my opinion, this is something I've found, 9 very basic parameters to music. And this is the way I like to think about things as I'm composing. There is tempo, texture, which is both kind of a combination of the structure of the music and at times a little bit of the orchestration. Timbre, which really takes the brunt of the orchestration stuff. Then there's rhythm, register, dynamics. There's articulation, There is pitch, which is basically like your melody. So let's see, tempo, texture, timbre, rhythm, register, dynamics, articulation, and pitch. Yep, that is, need one more. Which one am I missing? Articulation, pitch, register, rhythm, tempo, and harmony. All right, so these are really the 9 parameters of music that I like to focus on when I'm writing. And the reason why is because now we have 2 things we want to consider. All right, how do I want each of the 9 parameters to help tell the story? And how will each of the 9 parameters help to inform each thematic idea? And so these are 2 really big questions, right? These are really where I'm starting to flesh out my ideas of what I want to accomplish musically. So let's start with the story. All right, let's see, tempo. Slow to moderate. Right? And lots of love themes. We're doing a love theme here. Tempos tend to be a little on the slower side. All right, a little more lyrical. If you're following the Studio Ghibli series, it's very similar in that kind of music. Anytime it's lyrical and thematic, it tends to be a bit on the slower side. Not always, but it's very helpful. All right, it's like a very quintessential trait of ballads, if you will. So the tempo, to help inform the story, we're going to have it nice and slow to moderate. Texture, this is a love theme. They are very lyrical in nature, so we are going to stick predominantly here to melody, counter melody, and harmony. All right, so how this might differ in other contexts, for example, if I was writing a horror cue, I might omit melody entirely. All right, there's a completely different goal that you're going for with a horror kind of cue, a horror music. And melody just isn't necessary for it. And for that, I would also remove counter melody many times and really focus a lot more on the types of harmonies being used, types of harmonies and the tone colors and timbres of the music in general. But for this one, texture-wise, it is a ballad most of the time. So melody and counter melody are very important. And then, of course, the harmony is very important. So we've got the tempo and texture figured out. Timbre. Right, this is where we're going to start getting into a little bit more of the orchestrational idea. What kind of tone colors do I want to work with? So I'll typically work with love themes, strings. Strings are almost cliche. All right, so strings are going to be very important, especially in film music. It's a very thematic. Strings are what give film music its quintessential cinematic feeling. Strings, lots of soft solo tone colors. So I'm thinking woodwinds. Probably going to want to use some harp and maybe some horns. All right, these are all pretty quintessential for love themes, right? 9 times out of 10, if you find a love ballad from a film music, you can find it's most likely going to have strings, lots of soft tone colors, things like woodwinds, piano. There's going to probably be harp involved, and then sometimes some horns playing suspended harmonies later on during big climactic moments, or maybe performing a counter melody. All kinds of stuff. But we'll get into a little bit more about what I'm going to use these for particularly once we get to that point. But so we've covered the 3 T's. Next it's rhythm. Again, love themes, not too much energy, so pretty much stick mostly to eighth notes and quarter notes for the smallest or shortest subdivisions that we'll frequently be using. So we're not going to go too fast here. Stick with me if this is starting to bore you. We'll get to some good stuff soon. Register. This has to do with about how wide are we spreading the register. All right, so how much of the sonic realm are we using? Let's start intimate, using only a few registers, so maybe like a couple octaves. Build to more climactic use of multiple registers. All right, multiple octaves, going big. One of my favorite ways to do that, and another very cliched way to do that, is to perform in unison strings a lot, like the melody in particular. Performing the melody in octaves across 4 strings. Violin 1, violin 2, violas and cello, typically will play across 4 octaves if you're able to, and that creates a huge sound, and we'll actually probably be using that later on in this video. Next, dynamics. Mostly soft, then getting much louder. That just kind of goes hand in hand with what we're going to be doing. Probably going to start with a small instrumentation of the first presentation of the theme, and then get much bigger. The more instruments you add, the louder it gets, the more powerful it gets. So at this point, you're kind of getting an idea. I'm going through each of these 9 parameters, and I'm deciding, all right, what are the very bare bone, what are the basic tools, the kind of parameters I'm giving myself. What I find this does really well for me is it helps put me in a bit of a box, which is super important for creativity. It's kind of counterintuitive, actually. But back in grad school, I used to teach a class on the psychology of creativity. And something very important is to provide boundaries, because if you have too many options, if you have too many directions you can go in, it can suddenly become very limiting, because you have no idea which direction to go in. But if you're able to provide some limits to yourself and to provide some rules and understand why you have the rules, then suddenly you can be much more creative, much more proactive, much more effective. And then, plus, once you have rules, you can then find creative ways of breaking the rules in ways that make sense. So that's kind of why I went about doing this and trying to break down these 9 parameters. We still got a couple more. Articulation, mostly legato. I don't see a lot of short attack kind of sounds going on. And legato, very lyrical. Very lyrical. Okay, so then pitch. This is kind of like what kind of keys are we using, what kind of notes are we making. With love themes, with ballads, mostly chordal tones is very common. And then if it's a non-chordal tone, let's say passing tones and neighbor tones. Those are both very safe options when you're trying to create a very lyrical theme. And then the last one, harmony. Something that we can address here is like what kind of keys we're going to stick to. Major keys, maybe I'll borrow from Lydian, all right, which is kind of the whimsical mode, if you'll remember if you've seen my video on modes. So now I've got these 9 parameters. All right, typically what I would then do is I would figure out what kind of themes am I going to need to tell the story. So if this was a longer story, if there was more characters involved, or there was more twists or turns in the narrative, I'd figure out what are the most important emotions, what are the most important thematic ideas in the story, and I would figure out which ideas need to be represented very clearly by the music. Once I had that done, I would basically put up a description of what kind of music themes I need. Maybe I need a heartbreak theme. Maybe I need a specific theme for a particular romantic location, or a theme for, maybe it's childhood sweetheart, maybe like a childhood theme, or whatever's important for the story, I'm not sure. I would list what kind of themes I need, and then I would go through those themes, and I would go through each of these 9 parameters once again, and I would figure out which of these parameters were the most important for the main thematic idea. So for each of these ideas. Now, since this is going to be a short piece, all right, we've only got, not that much longer, a little less than an hour to write this. I'm just going to stick to one thematic idea, all right, not a whole lot of variation. But so what I'm going to do for this is I want to find out which of these 9 parameters is most important, all right, to help convey this idea. So for me, I'm thinking right off the bat, well, let's first delete this, 'cause that's what I would normally do. I would ask what parameters are the most important to this idea. I'm going to say timbre. Tone color is very important for a love theme. You don't get trumpet playing the love theme too often, which is a shame. I'm a trumpet player, and I love ballad music, but it's just, you don't get that to it. It's a very powerful, very brash sound. It can be done very beautifully, But for your vanilla love theme in music, you're typically going to stick to things like strings, woodwinds, harp, maybe piano, stuff like that. So timbre is going to be very important. We want to keep our orchestrational identity. Let's see, harmony is super important. I can't believe I didn't put that first. Harmony is very important because, again, this is a love theme, and quintessentially that's typically going to be major keys. All right, major keys, major chords, happy, fun time sounds, all that good stuff. You can, of course, deviate from it, but we're going for just a basic approach here. So then the last thing I'm thinking, because all of these can be important, but I'm thinking the most important will be the harmony, the orchestration, and let's say the melody, which here we'll say pitch. All right. So for all of these, we're thinking the most important characteristics for this theme. That's what we're trying to figure out here. Is timbre. So the, again, orchestrational identity, super important. Harmony is super important, and the pitch is super important. The other things we can kind of play around with, but these three we need to get right. All right, so for that, the next thing I do is I try to figure out what the climax is going to look like. All right, because in every music you need a climax. You need a peak. All right, that could be a peak going low or a peak going high. There needs to be a point where everything in the music has been working towards and has now culminated in the goal. So for us in the story, this would probably be the moment where the proposal happens. All right, so what we're looking for, normally I would look at the different parameters I have for across my multiple thematic ideas and try to figure out what's most important. But for the climax, what we're going to say, what will the climax look like? I'm going to think registers. More registers. We'll say the most registers used in the entire piece. All right, next I'll say timbre. All right, timbre. We're going to have the strongest orchestrational energy. Entire piece. And we'll say dynamics. Loudest moment of the entire piece. All right, there are other ways that we could do this. I would typically take a few minutes. I actually spend a lot of time doing all of this. So this is very unnatural for me to be speeding through all of this. Normally I like to sit down for several hours, several days, planning all of this as meticulously as possible. But for us, these three are going to do just fine, I think. These are the three things that we're going to build into for our climax. The way that we know that we have arrived there is we're going to be spanned across a bunch of registers, a whole lot of octaves playing in the melody. We're going to have the strongest orchestration, so more instruments performing at this point than any other point in the music. And of course, with that come the dynamics. It's going to be the loudest that it has been through the entire story. So after that, we've got the general sections. So I like to start mapping out these sections to the music. All right, so we'll say section 1, the memory lane, or the two lovers are just talking. I try to think, normally I would try to decide what material needs to be used here. If I had 4 thematic ideas or whatever, I'd figure out which thematic ideas are most important here. But the most important thing is, what does this section need to accomplish? All right, so this section needs to establish the thematic material. It needs to basically, just establish the thematic material, introduce the sound palette, or the kinds of instruments that are being used. All right, so at this point, you know what? Normally there's a whole lot of more stuff that I would go into. If this is something that you're interested in, if you want to learn a lot more about my process of planning everything, let me know. All right, I can make a video about it. I think that'd be really fun. But I also know that this isn't the most thrilling or more exciting stuff for lots of people. So let's actually skip the final remaining steps, because it's a short piece. I've got a decent idea of what I want to accomplish. So, and let's dive right in, I guess. All right, so we talked about tempo being an important aspect. The parameter wanted the tempo to be moderate to slow, let's say 75 BPM. All right, so if slow is 60 and lower, and super fast is 160 or a lot faster, 75 is about slow to moderate. So let's go with 75. And let's start by just creating a little idea. So I have my MIDI keyboard. I got my small one set up today, little 25 key keyboard. Let's go here and start with a musical idea. So I'm going to start with just one chord per measure. Let's do the key of C major. All right, that's nice and easy. We'll start with the tonic, which is a C major. So a nice C major chord. And then we'll pick one more chord. So this could be any chord in the key that you could possibly want to work with. Personally, I'm just going to go with the major fourth or the F major, mostly because that's pretty cliche for love themes. The whole idea of going is very common in love themes. So we've got two measures figured out here, chord-wise, and now it's time to try and come up with a motif. There are lots of different ways that we can do this. One of the simplest ways that we're going to start with is, sorry, I'm not using a mouse here, so it's a little tricky. Let's pick some chord tones. All right, just put in some random chord tones, and we'll embellish it from there. So C major, let's go with the E, because that's the third of the chord. It's the emotional center of the chord. Then we'll move up to G, because why not? It was either E or C, and I like the idea of moving up instead of down, especially for the love theme. Then, actually, that works pretty nicely for us, because then it's just a small step down for F, which is the tonic. Then we'll jump up to C, since make it up. So let's listen to this real quick. See how this sounds. All right, yeah. Next time, I'm definitely gonna make sure I've got a mouse set up for all this. All right. So not so bad. So now we've got a very basic idea of our motif. It's starting to take shape. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some embellishments. All right, so we've got our chordal tones. We've got a nice basic contour. So let's shift these half notes. Let's shift it down to eighth notes. So I'm thinking da, 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 da. Let's try 2 eighth notes, a quarter note, then 2 eighth notes. It's pretty simple. So what we could do here is we've now got 2 eighth notes. So we can move these up or down. We can do whatever we'd like with them. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is we'll try doing a passing tone, which is a non-chordal tone placed between 2 chordal tones. Let's try going up to a C, so then it jumps back down to G. Nope. Okay, that did not sound good to me. All right, well, it's not bad, but it's not what I'm looking for. Da, 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 da. Let's try this. What if we go ba, da, da, da. All right, so let's try this one. That sounds much better to me. All right, and honestly, a big reason, let's lower this down, why it does sound better is movement by step tends to sound a little smoother to the ear. Right? It sounds a little more consonant to the human ear. So by having those large leaps where I skip several notes in between, that naturally sounds a bit more dissonant. And depending on the interval that you're making, it can sound really dissonant. So by sticking mostly to this lyrical note, that's why lots of ballads, lots of lyrical themes will move mostly by step. But what we've got right now is the beginning of a motif. All right, so we've got the ba, ba, da, da. All right, quarter note, 2 eighth notes, half note. So let's see what we can do with this next one. I don't want to do an exact repetition because I want to try to have a 2-measure motif. So let's try reversing it. All right, change it. Well, not reversing it, but changing the order a little bit. So ba, instead of a quarter note, 2 eighth notes, half note. Let's do 2 eighth notes, quarter note, And you know, let's do another eighth note, then a dotted quarter note. Add a little syncopation in here. So, actually, yeah, we can do the A right there. We can do an appoggiatura here, which that's actually going to be a little risky, because that's starting the measure right off the bat with a non-chordal tone, but let's see how it feels. Ooh, okay, I kind of like that. All right, so right off the bat, the E is a seventh in this chord, so that gives kind of a delicious little dissonance to the sound. So I like that. I am going to keep the appoggiatura, but I don't like that rhythm. Let's listen to it one more time and see what I can think of for changing it. Alright, let's try moving this up, actually. Okay, let's try that. That might work a little bit better. Alright, so now I actually kind of like that A right there. So let's slide that over. So at this point, I've got a little idea of what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of listening. Alright, because of course, no matter how much planning you put into it, it is going to come down to whether or not it sounds good to you. Alright, so at this point, I'm just kind of making decisions based off what I prefer. Okay, I kind of like that, but let's try taking that note and doing another appoggiatura. Or this would technically be an escape tone, which is when you move by step in the opposite direction of where it's ultimately going to have to jump back up. So again, it's moving down by step to a non-chordal tone and then jumping up by leap. So let's give that a listen to. Much better. Okay, so it sounds good. We have already eaten through half an hour, so I'm not going to spend too much time being picky. So let's instead exit out of this and lengthen it up. All right, so let's lengthen that. Let's go back up. Yeah, I'm definitely using a mouse next time. Okay, so now we have our two measure motif. The next step is to repeat it with some variation. So right off the bat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it. All right, and then we're going to probably just sequence it. All right, so sequence it means to raise it or lower it by pitches. But let's see here. So let's bring up our notebook again, because I'm going to show you a little something about chord progressions. All right, I'm going to give you a quick crash course on functional harmony. So key of C major. All right, so we have, in the key C of major, we have a couple diatonic chords. We have C major. We have D minor, E minor, F major, G major. We have A minor, and B diminished. All right, so these are the diatonic chords that we have available to us. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. Yep, so all there. Each of these serve a different function. All right, they each belong to a different chordal family or a different functional family. All right, so there are three chordal families. There's the tonic family, which consists of chords based on the first, third, and sixth. So that's the first, third, and the sixth. And these sound very strong. All right, so these are our strong chords. All right, so next we have the subdominant family, all right, which is going to be a weak family. So that's built on the second and fourth. Second and fourth. All right, so Really, I could go into a little bit more explanation about why these fall into these categories and everything, but we are on a tight time budget. So the last family is the dominant family, which is on the 5th. And it is super weak. The B minor, or B diminished, can be considered subdominant or dominant, depending on how it's used, but it's also super weak, basically. So why is all of this important? This is important because in lots of music, our ears, just from the way we are the way they work, tend to group things up, all right, and to chunk up information to larger bite-sized pieces so that we can better process it. And the way we hear music is typically in a relationship of twos. All right, with chords, we hear two chords, two chords, two chords, and it all kind of builds up. But where this comes useful is we can balance strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. So right off the bat, we have the first chord is what we started with, and that's a strong chord. Yep. I hate not using mouth. Then we use the 4th, which is a weak chord. So if we want to just come up with some stuff that's going to work, we can go with another strong chord. So let's do E minor, which is just a random strong chord I picked because I didn't want to go back to C major, and I don't know, it just didn't feel like A minor. So E minor, and then we want a random weak chord. Let's go with, let's actually go with the G major, go with the dominant, all right? All right, so now we've got another strong, weak, strong, weak. Here we go. Let's do a little bit of voice leading. So F major and E minor are separated by steps. So a nice way to do these is to have one chord move by a third and two move by step. So let's find out which one moves by third. So F to B, no, G, E, nope, A, nope, C, there we go. So the C, G, oh, so this is actually already set up exactly how the properly voice led, or at least how I would like to do it. Then we'll take this D down here. Again, if you want to see a video on voice leading, let me know. I can definitely put something together there. But so now we've got our next chords. Let's move this up. So now let's try sequencing this to make it a little more effective. All right. Actually, the nice thing is this is technically reharmonized. If we could leave it just like this if we wanted. In fact, let's listen to it real quick to see how it sounds reharmonized. All right, so that kind of works, that first repetition. So let's revoice this or sequence this. So last time we used it, E was the 7th, so let's move it to the 7th again. So 7th of G, B, D would be G, B, D, E, F, F. So then it was F, which was the tonic, so I'll move that to G. Then A, so we go to the 3rd. Then G, it went down to. All right, here we go. So let's give this a quick listen to. All right, so that's working a little bit. I don't quite love it. Let's try switching this around a little bit. So listen here, I'm thinking I might want to go down. You know what? Let's actually just, oops, forgot. Let's actually just end it on an unresolved pitch. All right, a non-chordal tone. That's a little risky. All right, let's just cut that. And see how this sounds. It might pay off, it might not pay off. Let's give it a quick listen. Excellent. All right, so we've got the first 4-bar phrase figured out. And the beautiful thing about all this is we can arrange it into a period, which is basically 2 4-bar phrases typically. And we'll make it a symmetrical period, which means that it's basically the same exact thing repeated over and over again. We'll do this just for time reasons. So we can literally just copy and paste. And then we just need to change up the ending to make it a little bit stronger. So we've got the... Let's give it a quick listen. So here, I think, to give it a little more momentum, we'll move up. Alright, so yeah, let's... Actually, I could just leave it. Let's listen to this whole thing once. Okay. It's super repetitive. Alright, and that's alright, because, well, I mean, it doesn't sound, repetition doesn't sound good in a sketch. Alright? But that is where the beauty of, let's try it. There we go. The beauty of orchestration comes into play. Alright, so we have like 20 minutes to orchestrate this. I had wanted to write a counter melody to this, but we're running a little low on time, so I'll have to speed things up. One thing I do want to do though is, there we go. So the last thing we've got, we go tonic, then subdominant, tonic, then dominant. So one thing I want to do is to make it a little stronger on the end. We'll do tonic, subdominant, then we'll turn this one into a dominant. So we'll go like that. Actually, this is going to be a little different voice leading because we don't want to have that parallel movement. So they'll move by a step. We'll move the, let's see here. C, F would be to A, no, A to C, C to D. Alright, so FAC. Yep, my bad. It's alright. I have got to use a mouse next time. This mouse pad is just not working. Alright, so voice leading. I want 2 of these voices to go by step and 1 to go by third. So I'm trying to figure out which one does go by third. So we could step from C to E, or it would be to A. So it would be third. So that's not going to work because there aren't any of those. It would be either F. Okay, here we go. There we go. So that's a bit better voice leading. And then this one, we'll go there. And there. So now we're going to end on the tonic. So it's going to take a little bit of adjusting for these chords to make sure that they still work. So G, B, D, F. So let's move this up. So then, you know, where was I? So let's just move all of these up. F, so then G goes there. So let's see here. That does not work. G, B, D, E. Okay, so G, B, D, E, F. Yeah, why is that not working? It's because the B, the third, is in the root. And that is a very shaky, unstable note. It's not going to let us do the seventh. So let's try. Then we'll do. Then we'll end it on. Alright, we'll just end it. So the decisions I'm making have to do with musical punctuation. That's something I'll try tackling in a different stream or different video. But basically the idea is for questions and answers in music. You've got pitch, dynamics, articulation, rhythm, and texture. There we go. 5 musical punctuations, and each of them can be used to create an ending or to create a punctuation in your music. You need at least 2 of them to agree. So typically it's the rhythm and the dynamics both agree. It's 2 very common ones that this is the closing. So the dynamics will get quieter, the rhythm will slow down, become less active, and they agree, punctuation. The other 3, then if they outright contradict it, so like if the harmony starts building up into something new coming, it says, no, it's not over, it's coming, that would make it a question. That would make it so that the music wants to continue. However, if more and more of the 5 pieces of punctuation all agreed that this is an end, the stronger the end to the phrase. That was super vague. I'm sorry, I'd love to go into more detail, but I do have an appointment after this, so I have to keep to the hour. Unfortunately. So if that is something else that you're interested in, let me know. The nice thing about this is I'm getting all kinds of ideas for content that can be useful, hopefully. So let's give this whole thing a quick listen to. As a warning, as a sketch, it's going to sound super repetitive, because it is. Okay. So, not too bad for throwing it together so quickly. Now it's time to start orchestrating it. First thing, I'm going to focus on melody, the foreground, alright? So, I'm thinking the first 4 measures, the first phrase, I want a solo instrument, alright? So, and I'm thinking a solo woodwind, that's very common. So let's start with this, alright? We will copy and paste that first 4 measures. Let's see, what's the range? So the E above middle C all the way up to the C above middle C. So it's about an octave. That's good. Unfortunately, though, if I think about it, we could do English horn, but the English horn doesn't quite have the sound I'm looking for. So what I'm doing right now is I know what range the melody is in. I'm trying to figure out which of my woodwinds that I want to choose from can actually perform this register and hold their own. There are some things, maybe if I pulled back on the harmony a bit, but again, we're running a little low on time today, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just raise it an octave. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put in this flute, because that would be the middle register of the flute. Alright, and the flute mid-register is a very lyrical, a pretty bright and powerful sound. It'll have no issue pulling it. I do want a solo. So let's activate this. Enable track. Alright, we're pulling up my... This is Spitfire Studio Woodwinds Professional. Let's give this one a quick listen to. Alright, that's pretty good. Let's try seeing if I can actually record this with the time with my keyboard. Okay, so. Okay, yeah, I think I can do that. I am not a strong piano player. But let's do that. Turn on our metronome. Hold up. Maybe I gotta move this up. I'll mute it. Let's do a count in as well since we're starting right there. Or not, I guess. There's no count in. Oh no, yeah, that's right. Okay, this is the count in. Alright. Where'd it go? Alright. Yeah, I have got to use a mouse next time. No, it just... Alright, hold up. Oh, that's what happened. There we go. Elongate that. Do that just to put those two together. Let's give it a quick listen to again. Alright, so this is good. You guys are seeing this in real time. These are some genuine frustrations I can often have when I'm trying to record my own stuff. The mod wheel did not quite work. So for the first half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here. Let's switch to modulation so I can see it. Let's give this a listen to. And let's see here. Let's activate it right here. See if that helps at all. There we go. Alright, there we go. So we got that going. Next, I'm thinking, why not? Let's continue with the strings, but I'm thinking this time, or with the woodwinds. I'm thinking this time I'm going to double it with a section in the strings. Since we are running low on time, I'll record it once in the flute, and then just copy and paste. Oh, I copied and pasted the wrong thing. You know what? Alright, because we are running low on time, I am just going to copy and paste. I won't do any recording, unfortunately. Sorry about that. So it won't sound any semblance of professional at all, but it should be fine. Alright, there we go. So we've still got that one copied. So what we're going to do, I'm going to down strings and harp. And let's activate first violins. We'll solo those as well. Excellent. Alright, so it's starting to take shape a little bit. So I've got the melody in flutes for the first phrase, or solo flute for the first phrase. Then, to help it grow a little bit, I'm going to double it with just one string section for the melody. Now let's start getting into more of the harmonies. All right, so let's take these first 8 measures of chords. What we'll do, we'll go down to these strings, we'll activate them. So what I'm going to do is for this first section, which is the first 2 phrases, I'm going to put some very simple melodies into just the string section. All right, so I'm going to place the voices in the second violins, violas, and cello. Then I'll put the bass line in the contrabass. All right, get all these activated. Turn them all on. All right, so starting with the violins, second violins, let's pop these in. For the sake of just making it quick, I am going to raise these all an octave, then take the middle line, and I am just going to lower that an octave. This is just a nice, quick little hack for writing string parts. Normally, I would like to spend a lot more time on this. I'd like to embellish the harmonies a little bit. I like to make sure that they're each in optimal ranges for each of the instruments, which they're in playable ranges, which is good. There's a whole lot of stuff I'd like to do, but since I am... Oh, 1 second. Accidentally pressed the copy button too early. Since I am on a strict time budget here, I am going to just see what all these little shortcuts I can do are. So let's look at this to figure out what the bass line is again. I'm just going to write this down real quick. If I have a pencil, which it would appear I do not. Anywho, I'm just going to remember it. Let's see, so C major, then F major, then E minor, then... You know what? Actually, this is what we'll do. We'll just... Here we go. Yeah. C major, F major, E minor, G major, then C major, then it was F major again, E minor, G major, so we repeated that, then C, F, E, G, so it was repeated again, then C, F, G, and C. Alright, so then we're just going to copy all of that. We're going to cut it. We're going to pop it in the basses. Let's give this a quick listen to. Alright, so it works, but the flute is being dramatically overpowered here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is actually, especially at the beginning, because I'm actually playing with the legitimate modulation data for the flute to make it quieter. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you a nice little cool trick here in Cubase. I'm going to go to Articulations. So I have my expression maps set up. We're not using any of those right now. I'm going to pop Dynamics. I'm going to pop that down to Piano, which is very soft. We're going to go to Articulations again, Dynamics Mapping. We're going to send to Volume, Expression, and send to Controller, and set that to Modulation. Alright, so this is a nice quick fix that we're just going to apply to each of these. So piano, make sure that that's set again. And then, yeah, basically I'm just going through making sure that each of these are going to be not just played quieter, which I could do with the volume control. But what I'm doing is I'm making sure that the sound libraries are being told to not just perform quieter with the volume, but to use these specific samples that make it sound realistic. So a actual violin, when played quietly, is going to sound very different from a violin playing loudly that just got its volume or its mic turned down. So let's give this a quick listen to. Alright, so that works, but something's not quite right here. One of these, some of these got made much quieter than they should have, and I'm wondering why. Double checking all of this. Let's move this to mezzo piano, so kinda soft instead of super soft. Dynamic set to volume. Yep. Let's give that a listen to real quick, actually. Alright, so there we go. That's the intimate thing. The next one, I think I got time for this, is I want to make it very loud. Alright, I want to make it very strong. I want to make it very prominent. Alright, this is the moment where the question has been popped. The two lovers are going to get married. It's a happy ending. Yay! All that good stuff. So what we're going to do is right off the bat, going to, again, this is going to be very bare bones because I'm running out of time. Going to extend all of these. And we're going to put the melody into 4 different octaves played by 4 different stringed instruments. Alright, so let's place that. So violins can go, ones can go 1 octave. That'll fit. Will that? Okay, that'll be a little high for the violins to play in a section. I mean, I might be wrong. I was eyeballing it, and Cubase is weird using different. Alright, but that'll be played an octave lower in the second violins, and we're actually going to turn this into a crescendo. And this we'll put on forte. You know what, let's do fortissimo. Just because of the way that Cubase makes this sound. Alright, so then violas. We'll be playing it here. Alright, yeah, I am definitely using a mouse next time. Alright, we're going to put this on fortissimo again. Put that into a crescendo. Highlight all this again. We've got 1 more octave to go. There we go. Octave down. And once again, going fortissimo or super loud. There we go. So let's give this a quick listen to. Alright, so it could be a bit bigger. It could be a bit stronger here. Let's try doing this. Well, first let's raise that. Send to volume, send to modulation. Let's give this a try. Alright, so normally I'd like that to get a little longer, so I'd play with it. I'd definitely use the mod wheel to modify it. But right now, we are technically out of time, so I'm just kind of pinching this out. Alright, so while I'm getting some horns in here for a nice strong harmony, something I will say is that I would also, normally I would have liked to spend a lot more time accounting for the different changes in the dynamics, the modulation. I would have loved to add a harp on some arpeggiation in the first sections. Would have loved to add some ear candy in the woodwinds, using them to double some colors, add lots of runs, all kinds of beautiful things. Unfortunately, time just got away from me today. So who knows, maybe I'll revisit the concept of a love ballad later on. But for now, we'll give this a very quick listen to. So this is my first time streaming. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect or what to include. Hopefully you've learned some stuff. Alright, if there is anything in this video that you would like to learn more about, maybe it's my process, maybe it's about the punctuations and question and answers of music, the 9 parameters of music, whatever it is, let me know. Hold on a second. Nope, that's way too loud. Oh, what is going on here? This is not listening to. Let's try that. These are. It's a little too quiet. But, so yeah, let's give this a quick listen to. Like I said, very hastily put together, but would have loved to have like a cymbal swell right into this. Need to get those strings feeling a little louder too. Alright, so yeah, it's serviceable. It's a decent sketch. So it's a great space, especially for just, what, like 45 minutes that we spent with literally no idea what we were going to write. Just, yeah, came up with some good material. It's got some promise. And, yeah, the couple things I would love to do, like I was saying, would have loved to actually have the chance to record each of those lines, to actually play on the keyboard, give it a try, play with the modulation wheel while I'm recording to make sure that it sounds a lot more real, a lot more authentic. I would have loved to add some percussion in there just for some swells right into that big rival. I would love to make those strings sound a lot stronger, a lot more lush. Would love a counter melody, a harp at the beginning, a whole lot of stuff that I would love to do. But you know what? For approximately like the 45 minutes we spent on this, not bad. Alright? And the cool thing about this is I'm kind of doing these videos as an excuse to work on my own pace of composing. So, as I mentioned earlier, I like to spend a lot of time on the setup. So I can spend days going through a notebook, sketching out ideas, concepts, how I want the different parameters of the music to interact, how I want it to all build into a climax. And who knows, maybe if you're interested in that, we can do something. We're together on Twitch. We all work together and over the course of a couple of weeks, write an actual cool piece. But for now, I think in future videos, I want to focus on speeding up my writing process. And so that's where I got the ideas of not just doing this practice myself, but sharing it with you guys and hopefully letting other people benefit from it as well. So if there is anything that I mentioned in this video that you would like to see, or if there's anything that you think, we don't need to know that, all right? So like if you don't need to know more about my process, if you'd rather I do all that stuff behind the scenes so that when I get here, it's just cranking out the music, let me know. I'd be more than happy to do that as well. Yeah. So in the meantime, I think we'll call it a day here. The next video, I'm not sure what we'll do. Maybe we'll do a horror theme. I know we were talking about those earlier. We'll find something, and we'll see if we can get it to a better place than this one. See if every video we can get a little bit further with how strong we can get the P square, how ready it can be. But yeah, so thank you very much. So as usual, until next time, keep studying, keep working hard, and just keep writing new music. All right, and with that, let's see if I can figure out how to stop the stream. Here we go.